if a mouse went out in your backyard and started dancing in a circle shouting, Cody, 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 you go out and take a look. What are we going to build today, Cody?
Well, we had two requests, which is the very bread and butter of working title worlds. We had a request for detective style fiction, notably something related to the old world of Ton Fair. Do you remember the author for that?
I'm assuming you mean the magical detective with the dead guy in his back office. That was Glenn Cook.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it was the Garrett PI Files was what the entire series was called. We also had a request for a hidden world or a hidden society. So these are two requests. I'm pretty sure that you and I, given who we are, could unite these in something super weird.
Well, it occurs to me that a very common trope, wainscot world, where you have in a modern urban fantasy, for example, you might have an urban world, but then the magical world is hidden. No one knows it exists. So you have a technological society with a magical world hidden inside it. We could invert that. So we have a magical world like the Garrett PI Files with a hidden technological society.
I love it. I love the idea. I like being able to flip stuff on its head, and I think that's a fantastic idea. Also, it gives us a new way to look at it, which I think is exciting as we develop this world.
I would agree. Okay. So if that's like the overall conceit, that there is a secondary magical world, that we're going to zoom in the secondary magical world to the level of a detective. And detective is a nice character for this because detective discovers the world. In this case, he's either a member of this wainscot world, this high-tech society, or he's investigating it as in a case. Yeah, one or the other. And either of those are really interesting. Often in the normal tropey version of this, the society, the detective is a magical detective in a normal world investigating magical crimes, for example, or investigating normal crimes, but with a magical bent. We invert that, then you have a technological detective investigating magical crimes.
I love this. I love the potential in plot here to make this detective either, as you put it, one of the members of the secret society, which means they're using their forbidden knowledge or their hidden knowledge to solve crimes, or someone who is effectively a hobbyist in a magical world that is bucking the norm and then leaning more and more into the technological society and then ending up somehow either crossing them or becoming part of them. That's all plot, and I think it's absolutely delicious.
Yeah, I like it. I'm starting to get some ideas here because it enables us to do things like use very straightforward forensic, CI stuff, right? But in a magical setting, so the magical murderer has committed the murder, covered all his tracks or her tracks. They figure out a way to get around leaving any magical traces themselves behind, blah blah blah. But no one's heard of fingerprints.
I'm digging it. I mean, the shenanigans that we can get up to inside story is fantastic. Moment by moment, this is going to be an interesting way to juxtapose what we already know in a setting that doesn't know it, and that's always, that's always fun. That's a load for mischief. I think what we need to start looking at as we build this is what kind of fantasy world we want to put this high technological society hidden within it. So I think that's going to flavor everything. Glenn Cook's world with Garrett the PI was high fantasy. We had absolutely everything that we could stick in there, and eventually we had aliens, for goodness sake. So this was a very free world. I would like to limit us a little bit more. Even though I'm a fan of Garrett, I want to work inside a potentially, because hey, it's me, a dark fantasy place that is fascinating and rife with crime. I mean, we can make this, we can mute the colors and up the violence, or we can up the colors and mute the violence.
We do both at the same time. Yeah, okay. So I would pick in it with the high fantasy aspect of Glenn Cook. I would call it low fantasy in the sense that it's not epic fantasy, that it's high magic world for sure, but low in the sense of these are very small It's a very small world. They talk about bigger things. Garrett is back from a war, blah, 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 but we never see any of that. There's only incidental effects. I guess one question we could ask is this a high magic world or a low magic world? So we just have very little magic that's hard to use, or the magic is everywhere and easy to use. And the reason this is relevant is because if we have a high-tech society or high-tech hidden society, then, as Clarke's third law, any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic. Is it the case that we have a high magic world and a high tech world that's really high tech, or a low magic world and high tech that's just enough high tech that it feels like magic to the other rather unsophisticated, Renaissance level or medieval level?
Mm-hmm. I like the idea of a lot of magic, but you know me already. I love to limit my magic users or any of my paranormals to create a world where it feels at least balanced, where a wizard cannot by themselves rule everything. But at the same time, one of the things that I find, most charming about a fantasy world, even a dark fantasy world, are things like talismongers or potion makers or people that ride that line between magic and something that could just as easily be a simple form of chemistry or pharmacy. So I think in this one, what I'm hoping for is that we have a high magic availability, but we have not everyone able to use it. So we can limit it either by body or we can limit it by availability of components. I mean, whatever limit we put on it, and I'm kind of want to lean away from the tropes. I think what it would do is create a cast or multiple casts that we can then work into our magic situation or into our world. What do you think?
I like it. I like the idea of pushing the difference between magic and technology. And for me, magic is a numinous quality, an uncertain quality, unknown quality. And one problem I have with a lot of quote unquote magic systems is that they nail down the magic. They say this is the things it can do, this is things it can't do, and oh look, if we do these little things with the rules, we can basically it's rule hacking or min-maxing the magic system to get some unexpected effects. But to me, it's fine for RPG or a board game or something like that. But for me, it was the effect of actually having magic. So what about this suggestion? One key distinction for me, at least, between what I think of as magic and technology is that technology, to some degree, is reproducible. It works the same for everyone. And when it does work, it works exactly the same. That is, anyone can start a car, even if they're not legally allowed to. Whereas magic is, and it works every time, unless it breaks, right? If it's not working, it's broken. Whereas with magic, it could be that one, maybe you're not allowed to do it, or you can't do it, or even if you can do it, it doesn't work. But it not working doesn't mean the magic is broken. It just means it didn't work this time. You don't know why. There's no way to fix it. It just didn't work. So you do it again. So then we get it sort of into ritual that encourages ritual, because if it didn't work once, you do it again. It might work this time. It didn't, do it again. Oh, it partially worked. Okay, do it again. Didn't work at all. So, and it may have nothing to do with how perfectly you did the ritual. It could just be that it didn't work. That's maybe the part of the numinous quality of magic in this world is its uncertainty. That when it does work, it has spectacular effects, but it mostly doesn't. And when it does, it's so good you can't ignore it. Like if you cast a spell and it enchants a sword to be perfectly sharp, well, that's an amazing sword. Now, does that mean that now you can start a super sharp sword smithy for some alliteration? No, it doesn't, because maybe you could never cast that spell again. Maybe it just doesn't work for you or for someone else. You never know, right? So what do you think of this idea of uncertainty versus predictability? So yeah, this gunpowder bomb doesn't work all the time. Well, it mostly works, but the effects are never as interesting. Like it can blow a small hole, but not vanish the entire wall.
I enjoy this a great deal simply because I'm starting to see, the backside of an economy based on a magic user or a person who can work these miracles, is the fact that it doesn't always work, but Bob over here, who often appears in our stories, is capable of doing it at least 3 times a week. Hit or miss, but 3 times a week is ragingly successful. This means they would be a hyper famous wizard, mage, whatever we want to call them. And this person over here can do it maybe once a month, and it's never glorious, but it may be usable, or could end up as a curse. I love that idea because it creates a really push-pull dynamic with how magic can govern or shape everything from a battlefield to industry to healing. I mean, the worst thing you could do is go into a magical healer's shop on Tuesday. They try to heal you of your pneumonia and say, nah, maybe Thursday. I don't know. Come on back. I think that's a really interesting way to limit it, but it also creates the opportunity for the opposite, the really fantastic effect. Like, I'm going to heal you today. Oh, I grew a third arm. Looks great on you, and no more pneumonia. We'll see you later. I like that. I really enjoy it.
There's also another aspect that too, is that obviously if you want to have a reputation as being a powerful magic worker, you're going to learn how to cover your errors, right? Or cover your quote unquote failures, cover the times the magic doesn't work. So maybe you'll get very good at placebos. Maybe you'll get very good at saying, well, this cure will take, this many times, when you're hoping that it will just take once. But this could be the magic users are real, and they're also charlatans. The other thing that could be potentially interesting, I was thinking about another way to limit it, would be think about poker games. What if magic is like playing poker against the universe? That means that even the best gamblers, the best poker players don't win every hand, but they win better than, a novice. Like if I play poker, I get fleeced, just straight up. Like I'm just toast. What do you think of that idea?
It brings to mind an interesting question, especially for me, is what do they get fleeced of when they lose their game? When they lose their gambles, something bad happens. The best have enough to lose. The beginning, or the folks who aren't really great at it or who don't know how to control it, don't. So they burn out or something happens. So what is the thing that they lose for our magic system?
And I like this concept because we can add the concept of stake, right? Which is literally part of this, right? So they lose their stake. Well, you can think about magic users trying to get enough of stake together to start playing the game again, when they've been wiped out, right? So I'm starting to like this. I think there's some tread on these tires.
Oh, it's fascinating. This is a neat way to incorporate. I mean, we're getting phraseology out of this, which is fantastic. It's building itself. But I love the gambling side of it, especially because this is detective fiction. This is going to be about gambling. And I already have, plot elements growing in the back of my mind of this guy or girl or orc or whoever the heck we create here as character inside the world can be pretending to be a wizard by using their technology. And they don't have anything at stake because they can build the damn thing and it works, which would make them really curious and interesting. And they're a magical investigator using their magic to do these things. It hits us up with a really fantastic plot intrigue. So I am totally in for this.
Okay, so we have the core of the magic system. Another question that we want to come up with is, are there other species in the world? Are there pixies? Are there fae? Are there unicorns, centaurs? Man, there's not enough centaurs in fantasy, frankly. I'm kind of disappointed by that. I have theories on why, but still, I'm disappointed with modern fantasy and complete lack of centaurs and over-reliance on unicorns and vampires, and werewolves. So that's my own pet peeve. More centaurs, please.
I'm going to ask you one day to tell me all of the clues that you have in the theories about why we are limiting centaurs, because this is already fascinating to me, but please go on.
Well, there's a couple of directions we go with that, but maybe that's an SF program we should save for later time. So are there other species in here besides humans?
So kind of honoring something that came in with the requests is that one of the requesters was really fascinated with fae. It would be neat if we could sneak fae in here, but I, like you having a problem with centaurs, I have a problem with fae. I have this issue with basically knocking about inside historical context with fae from various cultures, creating a really weird. A lot of the stories that I read about fae, especially in modern fiction, is the fae are very predictable. I know what fae look like. I know the names for fae in various languages. I mean, if we do something like fae as another species, I want them to be truly weird, and I want them to be intrinsically linked to the magic somehow. Like maybe they're part of this gamble, but we don't have to do it in that way. If we do have species, I want to throw this on its head. I am really, as of today, I am so sick of the typical species that we find. We really need to revitalize this. If we have a fantastic world, we need some fantastic species. I am also perfectly fine adding centaurs of some variety to this in some way. I mean, this world is begging for mounted police that are centaurs.
I would agree with that. I like the centaurs aspect of it. So these two species, and that begs the question about where the horses, and if you make evolution happen in this world, which I think we should. The question of Fae, I agree with you. Right? So Fae has different connotations. Sometimes it's kind of like the elves, Tuatha De Danann, who they live under the hill, or they're tricksy. There's some modern authors who've done a little bit weirder stuff with that, but I generally you're right. It does tend to be a little bit derivative and sort of strip mining mythology for interesting gems. The common aspect of this common thing with the Fae is that they're anthropomorphic. They're humanoid of some sort. So we can take that away to say the Fae aren't humanoid. So if they don't look like humans at all. They're not small humans. They're not big humans. They're not humans with wings. They're not tiny humans with wings. Not at all. That right there kind of moves it into a new realm. So that means, are they related to humans, or are they an other? Do they pre-exist humans, or do they come after?
I like the idea of making them the other side of the coin for humans. So they're not humans. They arrived at the same time as humans, but they represent the othering of humanity. So let's look at it this way. We've got, a Fae that maybe is, for an example, they look like a tiger spirit or something. This Fae is linked intrinsically to some person on the planet. So for every person born, a Fae is born. For every Fae born, a person is born. So there is a duality behind it that gives them, the shadow aspect of what humanity is. And what some of the earlier folklore suggest anyway. It is the world that shadows the world.
I like that. And so we could probably, one interesting aspect we could then shadow is that we like to think of ourselves as logical creatures, though we're more system one thinking, as heuristic than system two. We could, for example, invert that. So the Fae, non-human, are very logical, extremely logical, more logical than Spock, right? So everything is cognitive. Fae typically tend to be more emotional, so that would be another kind of inversion. Or we could say that they go further than humans, so that everything they do, or nearly everything they do, is heuristic in nature. So they have, let's say they're as complex as humans, but they arrive at the complexity through many, many, many more instincts or reflexes or heuristic patterns of thought than humans do. If humans are emotional response and logical response, logical thinking after, that simple inversion seems to be a simple one, but also making creatures that are extremely heuristic bound, where they don't think at all, they just react to stuff, could be interesting as well. What do you think?
I am leaning towards the logic first, because I think that gives us a way to play with that secret society too. So if we have a secret society of humans that are effectively engaging in technology, it could be initially inspired from the logical pursuits of Fae. But somehow the Fae are not either overly active, or Fae magic, quote unquote, is simple technology. Maybe Fae gave us, the water wheel. And the humans that are trying to figure all of this out have been making bigger and bigger and bigger discoveries on their own, quickly outstriping Fae magic. So we've got a bridge between those. We have the society, we have an explanation for their existence, we have the connection to the Fae. Also, I like the idea of Fae being logical, but I want to straight out rip off some stuff from Star Trek. If we're going to have a logical thing, then we need to also have big emotions. But I want to find a way to do it differently than Star Trek did. So Vulcans suppress their emotions. The Romulans were the emotional side, but they could also use the logic. So for our Fae, I want their emotions, or that emotional aspect, to be equally great to their logic aspect, but I want to make it hormonally timed. So Fae shift gears.
Okay, couple of thoughts. I like the concept of this for shifting this, which I appreciate that. I don't want to tie it to the moon, because I think it could be too easily interpreted as a metaphor for PMS or something like that. So I would rather pull it away from human cycles at all. So non-human cycles, maybe tide, which is lunar, but it could be the daily tides, so that maybe the phase cognition shifts on a diurnal basis, right? So it's maybe they're more logical during the day, or more logical at night and less logical during the day, something like that. Or maybe it shifts on some other calendar a star calendar, a yearly calendar that is not tied to, maybe they're very logical in the winter and very, and wanton in the summer, something like that. What do you think?
I like the aspect of day. I think that's an interesting cycle to work with, because that would mean that when humans are interacting with them, the shift could be visible in one day, which would be very interesting to see how characters react to that. How culture might grow actually from that. How it might be, instead of the witching hour, we have the Fae hour, where if you have a question to ask, this is the time to do it, because the Fae is not going to do it at 5 past midnight. So I think the next step is trying to figure out how much of an impact do the Fae have on our magical side of our world.
Two thoughts on the Fae before we go on. One, a Fae is that cloud of shadows. Another Fae might be a whirlwind of leaves over there. Another Fae might be a hive of bees, or the mice living underneath the house. And so how you communicate with these different Faes might be different. With the mice underneath the house, you have to give them milk and cheese and a bit of bread, and you lay a little pattern of crumbs out, and then they answer it or not, depending on their mood. The cloud of shadows, maybe you need to give it a candle, or the leaves, maybe you need to throw it some scarves or something pretty. So just a thought on that. It's like our Fae, I was thinking not all of them the same. Humans have this sense of, well, humans look like this. We're all like that. Maybe Fae are more like, every Fae is utterly different, except for its personality. Humans are very, very similar, except for our individual personalities, whereas Fae might be utterly different in their external form, but their personalities might be very, very similar.
I love it. That particular idea is incredibly evocative and can generate 10,000 stories on its own. So that is brilliant. Let's go with that. I think that's a fantastic way to approach this.
Thank you. The other idea I was thinking of is that perhaps, so in our world, typical fantasy, humans are seeking after the Fae to get magic. In this world, humans are seeking after the Fae to get technology, because Fae technology is indistinguishable from magic. Now, the human wizards of this world have had very little luck getting anything from the Fae in terms of magic, because they're thinking it's magic. They keep trying to figure out why the Fae can do this magical stuff in this repeatable basis and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, no, they can't. Maybe the Fae can't do magic at all, but they can do technology at extremely high level, and they're not willing to give that technology to humans. At least, I mean, would you give, like, if you had a rat underneath your studio, would you give your rat like a machine gun? I mean, you might give it a wind-up toy out of curiosity and just, for fun, but you wouldn't give it like, here, rat, I'm going to give you a bomb and see what you do with that. Like, no, here's some scalpels, and, here, monkey, have a bag of Uzis. It's not going to happen, right? So the Fae are not ridiculously dumb. They're very, very logical, except when they're not. And in which case, maybe humans get a hold of technology, i.e. magic, they shouldn't have, and then things go really, really wrong. Hence, these human interlocutors who have enough have enough technology to be useful, but not so much technology as to be dangerous.
What better job for our secret society than to give the rats a bag of Uzis, as you said? I mean, that's perfect for our crime scenes that our detective will have to then work out. So even if we get the Uzi per se from a Fae when it's in the non-logical side of its cycles or its moods or its being or its duality of nature, that particular Uzi will then go to maybe our technological society who's hoarding these things to try to reproduce them and make them better. They get leaked out into the world by one that isn't so great at keeping it secret or wants to use it to gain power, and then we have the creation of our character to solve that particular problem, or at the very least to interface with it so the world can understand it better.
The Fae don't want humans to have too much technology, and so if humans start developing it well, and the Fae take an interest, well, bad things happen. If the mice under your house, not that you have mice under your house, but if there were mice under your house, and if they had started building, like, I don't know, miniature tanks and like an air fleet or something like that, I think you would probably want to clean them out before they got too far. before they got onto their rocket program.
Are they approachable? Can we say, hey, are we setting rules about technology today or not? Or are they kind of the fantasy tropey thing where we have to beseech them in some way to be able to communicate? We have to go through ritual or idea or earn their favor or something like that. So there might be many Fae, but it's really difficult to actually get them to say or do anything at all. But when they're pissed and they see that the bag of Uzis has made it to, 6th and Johnson, there will be a problem and the Fae will act.
Yeah, let's take one problem at a time, question at a time. I think maybe it's kind of like this. You would have no interest necessarily talking to the Parliament of Mice. But if a mouse went out in your backyard and started dancing in a circle shouting, Cody, 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 you go out and take a look. And kind of like, what's up with you, dude? What do you want? What's going on? And it's like, Cody, bread. And you might give it a piece of bread, or like a toy. But you're not going to negotiate with the Parliament of Mice to what? I guess the point being there is that the Fae have it's not that they don't have interest in humans. It's that the humans don't have anything for them. At least they think they don't.
There we go. That's a nice seed to put in there to see how it grows. It provides a lot of fuel for a creative fire. I like it. I think that we're ready to write in this. What do you think?
Yeah, I think it could be a lot of fun. I think it'd be a lot of fun to write in this Fae-haunted city of magic, of splintered factions that are entire nations that within completely different governments at war with each other, within the walls of a city, beyond which the unknown, a void, a maw that has eaten everything that's gone there, has come from there, awaits.
And where we have one lone detective with his feet up on a desk with an actual working desk fan that they created themselves.
Exactly.
Let's go right at it.
Let's go right at it.
Well, Andrew, that is a wrap. I really enjoyed that episode.
As did I, and I hope our viewers did as well.
Speaking of our wonderful viewers, they can like, subscribe, and follow, and definitely tell their friends. And if they tap that little bell at the bottom there, they will be notified when our next episode comes flying around.
And speaking of this episode, if you would like to see what it looks like on paper, as soon as we write in it, that will be up on worlds.workingtitle.us if you subscribe for the writer and podcast support tier.
We'll see you again next time. And remember, we can create anything. Trust me.
And do.